Alright, Math 1, Lesson 5, 1.5.1. So, last one of this unit. Pretty much. So, looking at these, we're going to rearrange our equations and formulas. Okay. Now, first thing, before I do this page, I actually want to go back and do the second page. Okay. So, because I want to highlight a few things about this. First of all, okay, notice from left to right, same situation, except these numbers here have a y where normally they didn't. So we've added in a second variable. Single variable on this side, two variable on this side. But let's see how we simplify or solve for x. Okay, on number 1, because we have 5 divided the whole side, we're going to have to do the opposite. We're going to have to times by 5 first. Okay, because, and let me maybe jump back a second, this whole side is as simple as it can get. Remember, 3x is like x plus x plus x. I can't combine that with a 2. I can't divide it by a 5. Therefore, I'm as simple as I can get. Okay? And one way you can think about solving this is like this. Say, okay, what's being done to x? Well, if I knew what x was, first I'd times by 3. Then I would add 2, and then we'd divide by 5. But because I have to solve for x, I'm going backwards. Okay? So, and I do the opposite. So first I'd times by 5, then subtract 2, then divide by 3. So, first thing I do is times by 5. That cancels out because dividing by 5 and timesing by 5 cancels. So I'm left on the left side with 3x plus 2. On the right side, 35. Then I subtract 2. So I get 3x, because 2 minus 2 is 0, adding 0 does nothing, equals 35 minus 2 is 33. Then that final step, divide by 3. That becomes 1, timesing by 1 does nothing, so we get rid of it. 33 divided by 3 is 11. Okay? Now on the right side, we follow that same step. First I times by 5 to both sides. Those become 1, get eliminated, 3x plus 2y equals 35. Okay, now I subtract by 2y. Okay, we don't know what 2y is, so I subtract by 2y. This becomes 0, gets eliminated. On the right side though, negative 2y subtracting by 2y is like 2y's. Okay, we can't combine it with 35, so we just rewrite it. 35 minus 2y. And then the last step, we divide everything by 3. That becomes 1. We get x equals 35 minus 2y over 3. Which, if we knew what y was, we could then deal with. Okay? If y were 1, we'd end up with this same answer. But because it's not, we don't know what it is, we just have to leave it that way. We just rearrange the equation to solve for a different variable. Alright, now we're going to take a look at number 2. Okay, so same idea. If I was knowing, it's as simple as we can get it. So, if I know what's happening to x, first we'd times it by 4. Say x was 5. We'd go 4 times 5. Then we'd get that number, and we'd divide it by 3. And then the last thing we do would subtract by 5. But because we're solving, we are doing the opposite in the reverse order. So instead of subtracting by 5, we add by 5 first. Instead of dividing by 3, we times by 3. And instead of first timesing by 4, we're going to divide by 4. And that'll give us what x is equal to. So, I add 5 to both sides, because if I do it to one, I do it to the other. It becomes 0. We eliminate it. 4x divided by 3, same thing, equals 11 plus 5, 16. Okay, let me rewrite that. There we go. Okay, number 4 over here, same setup, it's just 5y. So I would add 5y first, giving me 4x divided by 3 equals 11 plus 5y isn't 16y, it's 11 plus 5y, so I rewrite it. Same steps. Okay, same steps. Times both sides by 3. Those become 1. We get rid of them. 16 times 3 is 48, I believe. Same with number 4, times by 3 on both sides, those cancel out. Now, 3 can distribute, right? So we'd get 4x equals 33 plus 15y. Then the last step, we divide by 4 on both sides, x equals 12. When we only have one variable, I divide by 4 on both sides, I end up with x equals 33 plus 15y divided by 4. It's not any easier over here, it's just solved for a certain variable, which can be very helpful in math. Alright, let's take a look at number 5. Now number 5 is different because I can do one of two things. Maybe let's think about it this way. This is probably easier for you guys. So if I knew what x was, because it's in parentheses, first I'd add 3. Okay. Then that would give me 2/5 times something. Okay. Then I would times by 2 and divide by 5. So times by 2, divide by 5. We're going backwards, so I'm going to times by 5, divide by 2, and then subtract 3. Okay. So if I times both sides by 5, those 5's cancel out. I'm left with 2 times x plus 3 equals 30. I divide by 2. I get x plus 3, because those cancel, gives me 15. I subtract 3. I get x equals 12. On the right side, I can do the same thing. I can times both sides by 5. Okay, and notice it'll start out looking the same. 2 times x plus y equals 30. Divide by 2. I get x plus y equals 15. Then subtract by y, and we get x equals 15 minus y. Okay, there is one more way you can do these problems, but I don't like it as much, and that would be to distribute the 2/5 in. So you'd have 2/5 times x plus 6 over 5, which is what 2/5 times 3 over 1 would be, 6 and 5, equals 6. Then I could even subtract by 6/5 from both sides. 6 would be 30 over 5, and I'd end up with 2/5 x equals 30 minus 6 would give us 24 over 5. Times both sides by 5, those eliminate, and get 2x equals 24, divide by 2, x would equal 12. I like, because this whole thing is multiplied that whole thing, we can do it the way I did it first, and I like that way better, personally. But this way would work, and you could do it the same way for this one. Alright, let's take a look at the last ones. Now these ones can be simplified, right? I can times that together. So 2 times 3 would be 6x. 2 times 4 would be 8. Equals 4x plus 12. Okay. Now I want to combine the terms that are the same. So the x terms and the regular terms. So I could subtract 4x. 6 minus 4 would give me 2x. That becomes 0. Plus 8 equals 12. Subtract 8. Those become 0. 2x equals 4. Divide by 2, and x equals 2. Okay, I can do the same thing to number 8. Times here, we'd get 6x plus 8y equals 4x plus 12y. Subtract 4x again, just like I did before. I get 2x plus 8y equals, that becomes 0, so 12y. Subtract 8y. I get 2x equals 4y. Divide by 2. I get x equals 4 divided by 2 is 2, so 2y. Okay, so it works that way. Alright, now let's take a look at these ones. So these ones want us to solve the equation for y. So it's the same concept. We're trying to get the y by itself. And we've got an x term in some of them. Okay? So number 1, if I'm thinking this way, what would we do to y first? We'd times by 9, then we'd subtract 18. If I'm solving, I would add 18, then divide by 9. Oh, they added. That should be add. That should be subtract. Okay. So subtract 18. Now, can I subtract 18 from 27? No, but I just rewrite it as 27x minus 18. Then we divide by 9. Now, here's the thing with division. Okay, that becomes 1. Now, I can leave it like this, or I can realize that 27 divided by 9 and 18 divided by 9 can be simplified. So in other words, I can split it up and have 21x over 9 minus 18 over 9, which 27 divided by 9 gives us 3. So 3x. 18 divided by 9 gives us 2. So y equals 3x minus 2. Which, when you look at that, you should realize, oh, I can use that to graph now. Okay. If we look at number 2, I've got the 24x on the same side, so I subtract by 24x. That becomes 0. We're left with 6y equals 66 minus 24x. Then I divide by 6. If I want to, I can think of each piece being divided by 6. That works too. That becomes 1. Y equals 66 over 6 is 11 minus 24 over 6, 4x. There's our starting number, and there's our growth. So it's a linear equation. We could easily graph from that. Okay, number 3. All we have to do here is divide by 7. Okay, that becomes 1. So we get y equals 77 over 7 is 11, which is subtracted from. Now, 10 over 7, can I simplify that? Not really, but I can leave it like that. Now, could I rewrite this y equals 10 over 7x minus 11? Yeah, that would work too. Either one of those work. Okay, number 4. So we would subtract 44. So we'd be left with negative 4y, because that minus stays with the 4y, equals 20x minus 44. Divide by negative 4. That becomes 1, so we get y equals 20 divided by negative 4 is negative 5x. Negative 44 divided by negative 4 would give us a positive 11. Okay, it says read each scenario and solve for the given variable. So we're just going to do some more rearranging. To convert degrees Celsius to Kelvin, the formula K equals C plus 273.15. Solve for C. So if we want to get C by itself, we just subtract 273.15 from both sides. Simple enough, right? So we'd get K minus 273.15 equals C. Okay, number 6, the formula for circumference, C equals 2 pi times the radius, is used to calculate the circumference of a circle. Solve this formula for R. So if you ever knew the circumference and wanted to find the radius, you could do it. So and pi is like a number. So 2 times pi is like a number, so to get rid of it, we simply divide by 2 pi. Those become 1 and get eliminated, so we have C divided by 2 pi equals R. Okay, 7. The formula V equals length times width times height is used to calculate the volume of a prism. Solve the formula for W. Same idea that we did in 6. We had 3 things times, we divided by 2. We have 3 things times, we divide by the 2 we don't want on that same side. So those cancel. We're left with W equals V over length times height. Okay, number 8, the formula here is a little more complex. S equals 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r times h is used to find the surface area of a cylinder. Solve for h. Okay, so this one's trickier, right? So we start off by subtracting 2 pi r squared. So that gives us S minus 2 pi r squared equals, that becomes 0, 2 pi r h. Divide by 2 pi r h. So everything divided by 2 pi r, oh, not h, because we wanted to leave h alone, didn't we? That becomes 1. We get h equals, so we're dividing both of these by 2 pi r. So we get S divided by 2 pi r minus 2 cancels, pi cancels, r squared is like r times r. One of the r's cancel, minus r. And there we go for that one. Okay, number 9. The formula for converting degrees Celsius to degrees Fahrenheit is F equals 9/5 C plus 32. Solve for the formula C. Looks a lot like these guys we just did, huh? So, first I'd subtract 32 from both sides. So I get F minus 32 equals 9/5 times C. Then, because I'm dividing by 5, I times both sides by 5. So that would times by both pieces. So we could leave it like this, which is probably the way they normally leave it. It's just 5 times F minus 32 equals 9C, because those cancel. Divide by 9, we'd end up with 5/9 times F minus 32 equals C. Okay, you could distribute that if you really wanted to, and you could have 5/9 F minus, for 32, it would be 5 times 32 divided by 9. 5 times 32 divided by 9 would give us 160 over 9, or 17.8. I like just leaving it the other way. I think that's easier to use. Alright, last one here. The formula for calculating the volume of a cone is 1/3 pi r squared h. Solve for h. So we want to get h by itself. So how do we get rid of that 1/3? That's like dividing by 3, so we times by 3. 1/3 and 3 cancel, so we're left with 3 times the volume equals pi r squared h. So divide by pi r squared. Or what's that? Yeah, that is squared. So we get 3v over pi r squared equals h. And there we go.